Hello, my name is Carrie and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a short introduction to my cozy mystery reading vlog. I decided to make this a vlog series, so this first one is going to be about reading cozy mysteries that are the first in a series. And the reason I started this is because I have found that cozy mysteries have become really a comfort genre for me. It's been a genre that I have been reading a lot from recently. Because of this, I decided that I wanted to do a vlog series talking about the cozy mystery genre and the books that I have been reading. As I already said, this video is going to be about the first book in cozy mystery series. So there's a selection of 4 books that I am going to be reading through this vlog. I will tell you about the books and give you a little bit of background on them. The first book I want to talk about is Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone by Benjamin Stevenson. This is about a man who is a writer, I think, or like he writes how-to guides for like how to write mystery books. 3 years before the beginning of the book, his brother committed a crime and he turned his brother in. His brother is about to be released from prison and the family is having like a reunion to welcome him home. It's the first time he's been around his family in many years. I don't know much more about the story. Obviously, it turns into a murder mystery at some point. I've heard a lot of people talk about this in regards to the narration style, like something about the narrative is different from other books. So I'm intrigued to see like what that will be like once I start reading it. The second book is one of my favorite types of categories, which is kind of a blend of cozy mystery and food writing. And it is Arsenic and Adobo by Mia P. Manansala. It's about this girl living and working in like a big city. She finds out her fiance cheated on her. She moves back to her hometown and helps her aunt like run a restaurant. And I believe the ex-boyfriend of the main character is a food critic who eats there and ends up dying, and it's presumed that he's poisoned by the restaurant. This is one that seems to have a lot of people divided. It has a pretty low average rating on most review websites. A lot of the reviews that I've seen have talked about the pacing of the book and how this is kind of problematic. So this is something I'll definitely be keeping in mind while reading, because pacing is pretty important to me in terms of a mystery book, because there's only so much that can be going on in the story. The third book is Beaches, Bungalows, and Burglaries by Tonya Kappes. This has a premise that is kind of like Schitt's Creek. The main character is very wealthy, living in New York, and finds out that her husband has committed fraud. She loses her home, and the only property that they can keep is this like really small town where they bought a trailer park. Her husband is taken to prison and she decides to go to this small town, but everyone there has been kind of scammed by her husband. Shortly after she arrives, her husband breaks out of prison and is found dead on this campground. So it becomes an investigation into what happened to him, and everyone, including I believe the main character, is considered a suspect in this. This is a really weird premise to the story, but I picked this one up because my mom started this series a few years ago and really liked it, because I think eventually the books, they turn into the main character like going camping around different states. And my mom loves camping, so that was why she loved the series. She's been trying to get me to read this for quite a few years now, so I think it's finally time to start the first one. The last book that I'm hoping to read in this vlog is Death by Bubble Tea by Jennifer L. Chow. This is another foodie mystery. Clearly there's a theme to the types of books that I enjoy. This one is about 2 cousins. I think one is living in the United States and one is coming from Hong Kong, being like forced to bond more by their family. And so they agreed to set up this food stand at a local night market. Suddenly a customer dies and their bubble tea starts being blamed for this. So I think the cousins then turn into like the investigators of the story. This is one that I just found randomly on Libro FM. It was in one of their audiobook sales, and the premise sounded intriguing. I haven't heard of anyone else reading this book, like anyone that I'm aware of, either online or in person. So I'm hoping that I have a lovely surprise with this one and really enjoy my time with it. So that concludes the introduction to the vlog. And so now on to the actual vloggy bits. I hope you enjoy. Okay, so first reading update. I am a little over 50% of the way through Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone. I'm enjoying this. I think a lot of people dislike this one because of the narrative choice. It does really play with the reader and it breaks the fourth wall. There's a lot of things that I can see people wouldn't like about this. It's talking directly with the reader, questioning I guess like stereotypes of the genre and playing around with different tropes and things. It's not exactly trying to build suspense. It's more like a cat and mouse game, and I really like that actually. I think it's a really fun, engaging read. I'm listening to this one on audiobook and the narrator is amazing. I'm also questioning, I feel like they added things in for the audiobook because they mentioned multiple times, oh, you're listening to the audiobook, and as an audio listener, like, it's really fascinating to me how they have played with this form. It's a book that I think really is celebrating the craft of like cozy mysteries. I will say there's a pretty large cast in this. Although all of the characters feel very real, like they have personalities and they are a little more dynamic than I expected, I don't feel like there's that much development of them. I don't see any big transformations, or even when we get the background of certain characters, I don't feel like it's digging deep enough for me personally to become emotionally invested in the story. And for some of the scenes, that's a little weird because there are very emotional things happening in this book. Although I guess that's also not really the point of the book itself and what it's trying to do. In terms of the actual mystery itself, I am struggling to guess what's going to happen next. There's been some events that have just happened that have really thrown me for a loop because I had some theories, but now nothing is really making sense with what I first expected. But there's definitely little Easter eggs I feel like are being dropped, so I am interested to see how it's all going to come together. Yeah, I'm really enjoying this so far. I am pleasantly surprised that the narration style really works for me. And that's the end of my first update. I'll see you again when I finish this one. Hello, I am here to film a reading update. So I finished Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone by Benjamin Stevenson. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was very entertaining. I didn't think it necessarily dug deeper at like serious issues and things, but I thought it was an enjoyable reading experience. The narration was absolutely amazing, and I really liked the big reveals. I didn't feel like I guessed any of them. The way it all came together was really great. I do want to continue on with that series. I'm on a little bit of a hold list for the next one from the library. In the meantime, I started Arsenic and Adobo. This is one I'm getting pretty far into, and I don't feel like a lot has happened. I feel like it's very slow moving. There's not a lot happening, and I'm just getting to a part where more things are starting to happen, but I don't feel an investment in the characters, in the story itself, even really in the mystery, because it's so slow. I don't know if I'll be continuing on with this after I finish the first book. That's what this whole vlog is about, is trying different cozy mysteries and seeing what sticks. So that is my reading update for now. Good morning. Well, at least for me, because it's really early in the morning, and I made a little chocolate coffee with like homemade strawberry vanilla syrup. It's very good. I have an update about Arsenic and Adobo. I finished it and I gave it 1 star. I'm really struggling to think of anything that I liked about this book. I really did not like the characters in this book. Especially our main character. I found her to be very annoying and also very selfish. Oftentimes in the story, she was just not talking to people that it made sense to talk to. And you find out later that if she had talked with these people, she would have gotten a lot of answers much earlier on in the story. Like, the people are like her best friend, or like childhood friends of hers, family members. And so that got really annoying to me because I felt like the main character was constantly concerned about her own problems and not thinking about the interconnectivity of problems in this mystery. I didn't really like that many of the side characters just because we don't get a lot of development of them. I know this is the first book in a series, and I know the reason they introduce so many characters across the different restaurants, the families, the friends, are because obviously I'm assuming they're going to be in future books, but I don't think anyone was well developed enough in this that would make me care about if they were in other books. In terms of the mystery itself, I found it to be very lacking. This is a very dialogue heavy book, and unfortunately for the investigations, she goes to each of the restaurants where the food critic wrote a bad review and essentially has the same conversation over and over again. It was very repetitive. There was one major clue that had been given so early on in the story. It took literally 20% more of the book for the main character to be like, I've been thinking about this all along because everybody's been saying this thing. And I'm like, I knew as soon as that first person talked about it, because how they talked about it made it obvious what was going on. Our main character was like always 50 steps behind everyone. I was like, what is the point of this? Like, I feel like I'm reading the same conversations over and over again. I'm not getting any more character development out of this. The mystery itself wasn't that interesting at a certain point. The only thing I felt that I liked in this story was the big reveal at the end. There's two explanations that are given at the end of the book for two separate events that happen. I liked the explanation for one. I thought it was really well developed and made sense. However, I don't feel like the story is set up in a way that would make that easy to guess, which I guess is a positive. The other explanation I didn't really like. I found it to be kind of illogical, and I just didn't really care about those characters and their involvement in things. This was just not a book for me. I think this encapsulates many of the problems that I have with some cozy mysteries, is that sometimes they don't actually know where to take an investigation. They're assuming that the investigation itself is entertaining, but it needs to be structured in a way that is entertaining. While I was reading this, I was thinking a lot of Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers, which is one of my all-time favorite cozies. And that has a large cast of characters. And I think in that one, it was a smart choice to do the multi-POV where all of the suspects got a short chapter. I think with a story like Arsenic and Adobo, it would have been nice to have this, because that inherently develops characters more. You're understanding more about their perspective. It also created tension in that story because you realize that there are things people are hiding from one another, and you're waiting for that information to either be found out by another character or for there to be like a blow up. I think it would have been more impactful if, instead of having so many scenes with the same interviews over and over, if they had done these little like slice of life POVs with the other restaurant owners, because also that opens the door for further exploration of those characters in later books. When I finished this one, I was going back and forth about if I think I would really ever read the other books in this series. And I was debating this because I was like, maybe these books will get better over time. And for a couple of the books, it seems like the ratings do average a little bit higher. I have a good friend on Goodreads who I really trust her reviews. I find she writes really thorough ones, and I often agree with her thoughts on certain books that we've both read. She was talking about this book and how in the first one, she had a lot of similar problems to me. It's a start of a larger series, because I believe when Arsenic and Adobo was released, they had already planned out multiple books, because books 2 and 3 were released 6 months apart, which is insane to me. That's a whole other topic about the publishing industry and how books are coming out closer and closer together. I see that largely as a negative. Anyway, rant aside, she was saying that because of this, she was willing to at least continue on and see if there was better development in future books. And I followed her reviews for the other books. By the third one, she said the same issues were there. They're not getting better. The writing is not improving. It's time to cave. And so that has solidified for me that I am going to stick with my 1 star, and I'm going to just never go back to the series, because I don't think I'm going to enjoy it. Now, because I finished this one yesterday, I finished it like in the afternoon or evening, and I started Beaches, Bungalows, and Burglaries. I think I'm gonna finish this one today because I didn't realize it's only 5 hours on audio, and I listened at a slightly higher speed, nothing like crazy. In that first hour of listening, I like the setup of this story, but I don't know that I like the main character or the investigator. The main character confuses me because you find out early on that she has a background that she's kind of like keeping hidden, but she is from Kentucky, where she has now moved back to. Yet she is constantly saying things that would make you believe she's never been outside of New York, and that she has always lived a very privileged life, which obviously, I mean, there are wealthy people in Kentucky, so she could have lived a very privileged life there. But the way she's being so secretive about her background makes it seem like she hasn't. It's just weird. I don't know. The investigator, I think I don't like him because the narrator's voice is weird. It feels very phony, and so I'm not picturing this as a real person. That might be affecting my viewpoint on him. He also comes up with these very bizarre theories, and it's so jarring because one moment he is on the same page as the main character and he's like, yes, I understand you, of course. And then he's like, but you absolutely are a murderer and you have done this and there is no one else that could possibly have done this at all. As they're in a town where everyone in this town had their life savings stolen by her husband who has been murdered. Everyone there had a motive, but he's like, you as the ex-wife, you had the biggest one. Which fundamentally I disagree with in this, because when she's like talking in the book, she's made it very clear she still really loved her husband. Yes, this ruined her life, but it's more so that it ruined the image she had of him. This belief that they were in love and they were building this life together and that's just over. And she doesn't understand why he would do this and how this even happened. These issues with the characters are not bad enough that I'm hating the book. I'm actually really liking the mystery aspect of this and how the investigation is starting to unfold. I really like the small town atmosphere, and there are a lot of characters in this one as well, but they're popping in frequently. It's enough that I feel like it's more building a community rather than using people as plot devices. This is one I'm definitely gonna continue on with. I hope that I end up enjoying it. I already have a 1 star. It can't go lower, you know? I mean, I guess it can. I could DNF, but I'm hoping not. So those are all my cozy mystery updates so far. Brief drink intermission. Also, I have Higher Love by Whitney Houston stuck in my head. Anyway, after I finish Beaches, Bungalows, and Burglaries, of course, I will give another update. And then I'm gonna start Death by Bubble Tea, which will be the last book for this vlog. Hello, this is going to feel very random because it is very random. I was just editing this vlog and realized I do not have the video from when I finished Beaches, Bungalows, and Burglaries. I don't know what happened. I remember recording it, but I cannot find it anywhere. So I'm going to give you a brief summary of my thoughts on it. However, it has been over a month since I read this book, so please bear with me in my scrambled thoughts here. I really enjoyed this one in terms of the community in the story. In my first update about this book, I discussed my frustrations with the main character's naivety and the main investigator's attitude towards our main character. I did not feel like either of them really got that much better throughout the book. However, the main character showed a little bit more growth than the police officer that was investigating, because I really disliked him throughout the book. He had such a weird negative perception of the main character. It was like he wasn't even investigating the case. His conclusions were truly so far-fetched and didn't make any logical sense, and I found it very frustrating because while I'm always down for a book that makes police look as stupid as they usually are, I did not appreciate in this story how irrational the investigation really was. However, again, the main character at least experienced some growth in this story. I found her to be much more endearing by the end of the book, and I think a part of that is because of the community aspect of this story. She becomes surrounded by the community in this small Kentucky town, and I loved the supporting characters in this. I would like to continue on with this series just to see more of this community, because I really loved how these characters took her in, worked with her, tried to help her, and showed that in small southern towns, there's often a stereotype of what these people are like. There's a prejudice about them and a belief that they are very prejudiced people, and that is often not the actual reality of those people. I think that they helped our main character grow up a little bit and also realize that you need to let people into your life and understand that people's anger and frustrations with her husband were not with her as a person. They were able to separate that she did not harm them in any way. I think I cared more about the characters than the mystery in this, because there wasn't really an investigation on the part of the police in this, and our main character is investigating sort of what happened, but also is building up this community. So it was a more multi-layered story than just a focus on a cozy mystery. While I do want to continue on with the series, I don't think that this is a cozy mystery that's going to appeal to a lot of people, especially with the characterization of the main character and the main police officer involved. You really have to care a lot more about the side characters in this, and the mystery is an interesting addition. I understand now why there's very mixed reviews on this one. However, I still definitely want to continue on. That concludes my thoughts on Beaches, Bungalows, and Burglaries, and now on to the next one. Finally, it is time to start the last book of this vlog. It's been a few weeks since I finished my last book for this. I was feeling a little bit of burnout with the cozy mystery genre, and also my other reading was kind of leading to a reading slump. So I took a bit of a break, and now I have started Death by Bubble Tea by Jennifer L. Chow, I believe. I am enjoying it so far. I'm about 20% of the way in. I am liking both of the female main characters. I think it's interesting to see their interactions together. They come from very different backgrounds and kind of see how they jab a little bit at each other, but also the things that they tiptoe around with each other. However, of course, this is not just a story about a family, it's also the story of a murder. Eventually, the cousins end up working together at this night market food stall that our main character's father, his restaurant is being represented at. They are serving drinks to customers. Later, one of the women finds one of their customers dead. There's suspicion that they were poisoned, which brings the food stall and by association, the father's restaurant into suspicion. The murder is in its infancy at this point. Like, there's only been so much information shared. I'm at the part where obviously the murder has happened. They're beginning the investigation, and I've really been flying through the beginning so far. I find the characters likable. I find the story well written, and I really love the narrator for this. I will check later in one of my future updates to give you her name, because I think she does a really great job, especially in distinguishing between the characters, because something I'm noticing at the point I'm at right now, there is a lot of female characters in this book. I always worry with audiobooks if there's too much of one gender, that at one point or another they're going to start sounding the same, and this narrator has done a really good job at distinguishing between them. So far it's been pretty good. I won't say there's been anything that makes me feel like this is a standout mystery novel. I especially am curious how the investigation is going to go, because at this point it seems very limited. The information that the police have is very minimal. The main characters are starting to investigate, but even that hasn't really gone very far. So we will have to see how this one goes. I do believe that I will be able to finish this one either later tonight or tomorrow, because I am currently on an extended holiday from work. I think I'm gonna do a deep clean of my apartment. Maybe I'll do a craft project, and I will wrap this one up. So yeah, that's my update so far. Hello from another corner of my home. So this is a different setup, because for the last couple hours of the Death by Bubble Tea audiobook, I am going to be listening while I do some crafting. This is kind of my craft room. I have some different projects I think I'm going to work on. I have a junk journal, so I'm going to do a couple of spreads in this. I think I'm going to do spreads from a trip that I took. I went like earlier this month, and I have a whole little packet of goodies that I need to journal with. And of course I have my reading journal to update, because I've finished a few books. So I have lots of options. We'll see what I end up picking, but that is gonna be what I finish this audiobook to. I also have some sweet treats that will accompany my audiobook time. There is a really lovely bakery in town, and they make their own waffle cones. They fill them with a coconut cream and then cover them in chocolate and coconut flakes. They are as amazing as they sound. I'm not gonna lie, I've definitely eaten a couple of these already. I am hoping to save the rest for my crafting reward or my audiobook finishing reward, because they are so good. So I have changed the angle a little bit because I wanted to show you guys some of my spreads from my junk journal. I just started this in November of last year, and so I've done like some monthly reports. I did like a haul page from a Christmas market that I went to. I started it kind of without any awareness of like where I was going with it. I just wanted to try different spreads, things like this. So over time, I ended up changing and adding more. So like this was from my trip to Athens, where I started adding like more flaps and postcards, even with notes about my trips. And it's been really lovely, because it's a way to kind of look back on the year and also my thought process at different times. This page was actually from an art fair that I went to. So this was actually one of the paintings. This was a bookmark, a business card. This one is a business card for the event. This was a map. This side was actually a painting. And so on the top, I have my like ticket to it, and then another like painting thing. And then on the bottom I put a quote and some of the little cards. So yeah, I think I've been experimenting a little bit more, trying different things. I'm gonna work a little bit more on this. In my junk journal also, you may notice there's a lot of like these little wet wipe containers. Fun fact, if you ever go to Turkey, there's a lot of opportunities for junk journaling because so many restaurants participate in this kind of branding. So it's really nice. That's actually where most of my junk for my trip comes from. They'll have like the coffee collars. They even have like customized things for their tea packets. Again, napkins, things like that. Of course, I have other things as well that are not the trash that I collect. I like have tickets and certain things. But like, for example, this was a cloth coaster that one of the restaurants we went to had. So, I mean, it's really fascinating how many things they have here that are branding that end up being perfect journaling supplies. So I finished Death by Bubble Tea. I think I'm probably gonna rate it around 3 stars. I will say I really liked the main character and her cousin in this. I liked both of them as characters and seeing how they really grew up throughout this story and how their relationship really evolves. However, I do think that the mystery was really limited. There wasn't a great investigation that happened, which kind of makes me question why this is a cozy mystery, because it didn't feel like they were really investigating things. I felt like only in the last maybe 30% of the book was there an actual investigation, and even then the story was kind of going in circles. And the police investigation also didn't seem to really be going anywhere, which was really frustrating to me because it just seemed to keep circling the same ideas. For example, they took forever to even figure out what she actually died of. And I know that takes longer in real police investigations, but there were like multiple different answers to this throughout the book based on the point of the investigation they were in. And yet it didn't change anything about their actual investigation. So it felt a little unnecessary. I don't think I will be continuing on with this series. There just wasn't enough for me to really care about the mystery or the writing here. And the characters, while I found them interesting, I don't really feel a need to continue on with their story. This will be the end of my adventures with the LA Night Market series. This now finally concludes the vlog of starting a new mystery series. I do plan to continue on with this with different iterations. I want to explore cozy mystery standalones and also sequels within cozy mystery series or starting other new series, because there's many cozy mystery series out there in the world. And the reason I started this vlog in the first place is because I really felt a pull to this genre. And in the 4 books that I read in this genre, although most of them fall within the 3 stars range, I do think that there's something really interesting about each of them. They all have very different stories, even though the heart of the story is the same. It's about a murder that happens and the people surrounding it, but the execution and the characters can be vastly different across different series. And I think it's something that I want to continue exploring. From the 4 books that I've read, I learned a lot about what I find interesting in cozy mysteries and what I don't. And one of those aspects is how the investigation is carried out. I think that the investigation needs to be more interesting for me in the books that I'm picking up. For example, in Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone, There is a very extensive investigation. It was very tongue-in-cheek, but there was a lot of events happening in that book. Whereas in Arsenic and Adobo, in that one, the investigation was very dialogue heavy, and it was the same types of conversations happening again and again. In Beaches, Bungalows, and Burglaries, and in Death by Bubble Tea, I felt there was more variety to the investigation. And in that variety in Beaches, Bungalows, and Burglaries, we learned much more about the community that mystery is set in. And I found that one much more endearing than something like Death by Bubble Tea, where although we're learning a little bit more about the community, it's very limited. And I felt like we were actually learning much more about the two main characters in that story. And that could be a positive or a negative, depending on your impression of the characters. Of course, characters play a huge part in murder mysteries because they're more character-driven stories. The plot is simple. It is that they are investigating a murder. Now, there can be more climatic or anticlimactic events that contribute to that story, but we already know the heart of what's going to happen. I think the characters in these books, some of them were endearing, some of them were frustrating, some of them I really thought were very well crafted, and others I found to be very flat and one-dimensional. So characters is another aspect of this where I'm really looking at different criteria about what I found interesting in this. And I think characters is where I struggled the most in picking cozy mysteries, because throughout these books, I was kind of gravitating more towards food cozy mysteries, and I learned with Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone and Beaches, Bungalows, and Burglaries that those were actually my preferred reads in this vlog. So maybe I need to read outside of this bubble of food-related cozy mysteries and see what else is out there that I may enjoy. I think these 4 books have taught me a lot about my reading, about cozy mystery as a genre, and the variety of aspects that make up a cozy mystery. I look forward to continuing on with this type of project in the future, and also hopefully doing more variety of vlog projects as well, although of course they will take a little bit more time to put out. But I hope you enjoyed this. I would love to hear your thoughts, reflections, feelings on the books, cozy mysteries as a genre, or what's important to you as a reader. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this very long vlog, and happy reading. Bye!